The events of the last 5 months have shaped my work by helping me understand how incredibly important my work is. Being able to speak to a wide audience and help people increase their awareness, change how they show up, create an inclusive workplace. I think right now it's the most important thing I can do.
I'm finding that working with teenagers in this pandemic, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, requires empathy, requires helping them connect to resources and continuing to create the opportunities that they are not receiving in the current climate.
Part of our mission has always been to push equity and justice for Black Minnesotans. And so while it's always been part of our mission and the framework of our organization, after the murder of George Floyd, I think we knew that as leaders within the legal bar in Minnesota that it was important that we take 2 steps forward and that we really make sure that we're really pushing the mantle forward with regards to equity and justice for Black Minnesotans and Black people in general.
My role models were my parents. They were both immigrants to this country. We faced a lot of challenges being one of the few minority families in town. And my parents really taught me the values of hard work and respect, compassion, empathy, and I just believe that that has really provided a foundation for the work that I've done.
My biggest accomplishments in my career have been helping individuals who otherwise were not able to access the justice system get access.
I think probably the thing that feels like the biggest accomplishment is to stay authentic and real about my inability at times to get it right, and to be able to share that with people and invite people into the conversation about diversity and explain to them, I'm not perfect, I get it wrong, and that we can't leave this conversation and work to the people who are perfect and who get it right and the diversity experts. Being real and being authentic and admitting I mess up all the time and then fixing it.
Good evening, and welcome to the Minnesota Lawyer Diversity and Inclusion Awards for 2020. I'm Bill Geyer, publisher of Minnesota Lawyer, and with me this evening are Courtney Broad, Vice President for Robert Half Legal, our sponsor, and Joel Shetler, editor of Minnesota Lawyer. We're excited to welcome you to the 2020 Minnesota Lawyer Diversity and Inclusion Awards.
The past year has been very challenging, and first and foremost, we hope that you and your loved ones are healthy and safe. It is truly an honor for us to welcome you here tonight as we celebrate the accomplishments of tonight's honorees.
Well, this is not exactly the celebration we had hoped for. Now more than ever, it's important to recognize the work that is being done throughout Minnesota to create a more diverse and inclusive legal community. Since we're not gathering in person, your participation in today's event is even more important. In the past, there was plenty of cheering as honorees ascended the stage to receive their awards. Honorees, if you'd like to stand when we announce your name, that's fine. But audience members, let's make sure to let the individuals and groups know you appreciate their hard work and dedication by posting comments in the chat on the right side of your screen. If you post messages to social media, use the hashtag MNDiversity2020.
4 years ago, we gathered a group of leaders from the MSBA and Affinity Bar Associations and created these Diversity and Inclusion Awards to recognize those who have done and are doing the hard work necessary to create a more inclusionary legal community. The 19 individuals, groups, and companies that we honor here tonight have all met that high bar. As you know, events like this are not possible without the support of our sponsors. We would like to thank our event sponsor, Robert Half, for supporting this event for a 3rd year. Thank you to our gold sponsor, Faegre Drinker. Our virtual event sponsors for the evening include Blackwell Burke, Greenberg Traurig, and Robbins Kaplan. We thank you for your support of tonight's honorees. I hope you enjoy tonight's program. With the help of our honorees, we hope to bring their achievements to life through unique storytelling and video. Throughout the evening, you'll see and hear in their own words what inspires them and how 2020 has influenced their work and their lives. You'll also see shout-out videos from several participating law firms. I would now like to introduce Courtney Broad, Vice President with Robert Half Legal, to say a few words.
On behalf of Robert Half Legal, I'm honored to welcome you to the 2020 Minnesota Lawyer Diversity and Inclusion Virtual Award Ceremony. We are delighted that you're here and look forward to recognizing some amazing Minnesota attorneys this evening. Our company is proud to partner with Minnesota Lawyer on this award program for a third year. And while we recognize that there is so much work to be done, it is important that we recognize the work already being done in order to bolster the efforts of those that will take us into the future. We continue to be inspired by the dedication, intelligence, and creativity of the Minnesota legal community. Robert Half's commitment to diversity and inclusion has its roots in the values of our founder, Robert Half. He was a catalyst for positive change in the employment industry. He lobbied against discriminatory hiring policies that were common at the time and led the successful effort to eliminate separate male and female job listings in major newspapers. Robert Half Legal applauds the recipients of the Diversity and Inclusion Awards for their passion and dedication. Congratulations to all of this year's honorees. I would now like to introduce Joel Shetler, editor of Minnesota Lawyer, to share with you how tonight's honorees were selected and kick off the program.
The individuals and firms we honored this year were selected from scores of nominations. They represent the epitome of ongoing work and exceptional achievement to encourage positive change. They are dedicated to the profession to ensure it represents the many facets of human diversity and to the application of justice overall, regardless of our differences. And in the difficult environment we find ourselves today, it is both a sobering and joyful time to recognize the heroes in our legal community who push the boundaries and move forward with positive change. The nominations we received highlighted work as varied as the legal professionals doing it, but all with a laser-focused mission on appreciating our differences through a creation of inclusion. In selecting these honorees, we looked at the commitment and impact they have had within their firms and communities on ensuring diversity and inclusion of all humans or in the equality of justice, regardless of our differences. To help choose this year's class of honorees, we relied on the members of a special selection committee of those in the legal community who share the mission we recognize today. Their help in the process was and is immeasurable. We sincerely and humbly thank each for their commitment to this effort. They made their selections in August, so you'll notice several honorees being recognized for very recent actions.
This year's honorees are quite simply inspirational. It is now time to meet the Minnesota Lawyer selections for the 2020 Diversity and Inclusion Awards. Remember, keep socially active with us by posting comments to hashtag MNDiversity2020 and commenting in the chat box to the right of your screen. And now, let's meet our first group of honorees. The law firm being honored this year is Green Espo.
Green Espel. The Minneapolis firm of Green Espel is putting its money where its mouth is when it comes to diversity and inclusion. About 2/3 of its attorneys are women, people of color, or LGBTQ. About 1/4 of their attorneys are people of color. Last year, Law 360 recognized Green Espel as one of the best 50 firms in the nation for minority equity partners. The firm's efforts have also extended to how attorneys are promoted. Attorney Jenny Gassman Pines assessed Green Espel's past review forms, identified instances of bias, and trained all of their attorneys on how bias can affect feedback. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize Green Espel for its contributions to diversity and inclusion.
My name's Jeanette Bazes, and I'm a partner at the Green Espel Law Firm. I joined the firm when it was just 3 years old in 1997, and over the past 2 decades have watched us grow into an extremely diverse, democratic institution. We truly value each person's input. We're one person, one vote organization, where each and every person has a sense of ownership for the firm and the decisions that we make together. And that is truly from the newest lawyer to our founding partners. That's, I think, our greatest accomplishment.
2 groups are being honored tonight.
Collaborative Legal Community Coalition. Another chapter in the saga of that historic lynching came courtesy of the Collaborative Legal Community Coalition. Chief U.S. District Court Judge John Tonheim helped create that coalition to commemorate the lynching of 3 men in Duluth. Last June, Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial hosted an event related to the tragic events. The District Court is working on a commemorative booklet outlining the lynchings. As awareness of racial injustice grows, the coalition reminds us that in some ways the times haven't changed yet. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to honor the Collaborative Legal Community Coalition for its contributions to diversity and inclusion. Minnesota Attorney General's Office. Keith Ellison's office recently put on a day-long CLE program on bias and hate crimes for a simple reason: they're still a problem. While the lineup of topics and speakers was in place before the killing of George Floyd in May, interest was very high. Nearly 400 people attended the in-person program. The variety of topics ranged from prosecuting hate crimes to the posthumous pardon of Max Mason. The AG's goal was to get the people to understand that bias and hate do affect all of us, even when we're not the actual victims. Minnesota Lawyer is proud to recognize the Minnesota Attorney General's Office for its contributions to diversity and inclusion.
Good evening. The Minnesota Hispanic Bar Association and its executive committee would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the recipients of this year's Diversity and Inclusion Awards. The work you do on behalf of your communities leaves a positive impact on all of us. We applaud you and appreciate your efforts. Congratulations.
And now, the individual honorees.
Uzodimma Franklin Abba Onu. Frank Abba Onu was named one of Minnesota Lawyer's up-and-coming attorneys last year, but he's done anything but rest on his laurels. He took on the role of president of the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers this year. Prior to that, he helped organize a Mabel silent protest after the death of George Floyd. Frank is also a member of the Committee for Equality, working across Minnesota's judicial system to promote access to the courts and eliminate bias. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize Frank Abba Onu for his contributions to diversity and inclusion.
So I'm big into history, and I'm a dual citizen from Nigeria, and so I kind of was learning about American history, and the 2 people that really stuck out to me was MLK and Malcolm X, and it was sort of a toss-up for me because their paths were different and their paths to how you find racial justice and equality was different. But I just liked them both because they stood out, because they both sort of took the charge and decided that something needed to happen, and they were brave enough to do it. Working not only with the idea that yes, you need to make money on your own, but you got to use your abilities and talents to help others. So working with Mabel, the Federal Bar Diversity Committee, and some of the boards that I'm on, just in my personal life, I just feel like that's just using my abilities, if I can't give financially, but using my abilities more as my talents that I can use to help other people who may need it.
Hello, Frank. On behalf of Bassford Remley, I want to congratulate you on being recognized by Minnesota Lawyer for all of your incredible efforts in diversity and inclusion. You've worked so hard to create positive change and a commitment to our community and to make our community stronger. You've done it in many ways. You've done it as serving as the president of the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers. You've done it serving on the board for the Minnesota chapter of the Federal Bar Association. You've done it in work with your alma mater, the University of St. Thomas, where you're a mentor to students, you're an adjunct faculty member, and you work with a school's moot court program. Those are incredible accomplishments. You've always been, throughout your time with the law firm, you've been a beacon of inspiration and change. You brought positive and thoughtful discussion, particularly in 2020, where there's been so many challenges. You've encouraged people to come together, to listen to one another, to respect one another, and to have the dialogue that we all need to have to be better. As you leave our firm to go on to your work with Prime Therapeutics, they are so incredibly lucky to have you. We are going to miss you terribly. We're going to miss your smile. We're going to miss your inspiration. We're going to miss your positive attitude, and we're certainly going to miss your outstanding legal skills. Congratulations for this fine honor. Congratulations to Minnesota Lawyer for selecting the perfect candidate who's incredibly deserving for this recognition. Best of luck to you, Frank. We're going to miss you.
Katherine Halberson. As Public Interest Counsel at Maslin, Katherine Halberson leads the firm's community and pro bono work. That commitment goes back a long way to when Katherine represented a Texas death row inmate and immigrant kids in foster care. She says she became aware of a lack of opportunities for people of color in Minnesota across the spectrum. 4 years ago, Katherine helped start an after-school mock trial program created for 8th grade students who reflect the diverse Twin Cities population. Under the program, students learn from Maslin attorneys about the legal profession, criminal justice, and the court system. Minnesota Lawyer is pleased to honor Katherine Halberson for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
Over the last 5 months, I've seen an increasing need from the teenagers we work with in Maslin Uplift, kids who feel isolated, who don't have the resources they need, and who are calling me not just for help with preparation for school and skills around their lawyering as teenagers, but with solving really fundamental problems. My biggest accomplishments in my career have been helping individuals who otherwise were not able to access the justice system get access, helping a client obtain asylum in the United States, helping our client in Texas who was on death row have his sentence overturned, seeing people's lives directly impacted by helping them get access to the justice system.
The thing I liked most about Maslin Uplift was that it brought together people that wanted to learn more about law, and it has impacted me a lot because now it has made me want to be a lawyer more, because before I didn't want to be a lawyer, I really wanted to be a doctor, but it changed my perspective on things. And
the thing I've enjoyed most about Uplift is watching the students grow and develop from the very beginning, being nervous and somewhat skittish, to being poised, professional attorneys in training.
It is the Uplift students who deserve an award. We created an opportunity, but they make the most of it, developing fierce oratorical skills and the presence and minds of skilled advocates. I learn from them every day.
Holly Dalessi. George Floyd died not far from the home of Robbins Kaplan partner Holly Dalessi, and the tragedy and later protests gave her a new perspective on diversity and inclusion. Feeling unsafe in her own neighborhood gave Holly a small sense of the fear that people of color have under the surface all the time. Even before that, Holly had helped create the Women Trial Lawyers Conference, which focuses on fostering referral relationships, networking opportunities, and educational programming for women attorneys. She's also chair of the Women of Robbins Kaplan Committee, which works to remove barriers within or outside the firm that affect gender diversity. Minnesota Lawyer is proud to honor Holly Dalessi for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
There's been many events. Obviously, the pandemic has affected pretty much the way in which we practice, in the sense that we're at home, we're on Zoom meetings, we're before the court virtually and not in person. But it hasn't, the pandemic itself probably hasn't changed the practice as much as all of the racial uprising that has happened after the death of George Floyd. And we at Robbins Kaplan have made efforts to both continue the work that we had done on behalf of racial justice, but also increase those efforts. And then for me personally, the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg has also been a very motivating factor in focusing my work on the inequities that are faced by women and trying to right as many of those wrongs as possible. Growing up, she probably doesn't know this, but my best friend, who was also my next door neighbor, her mother was a college professor and a sociologist and was very active, and it remains very active in the civil justice field, and she has always been a role model for me. For me personally, there's been two of them. One is the work that I'm doing now as chair of our Women of Robbins Kaplan group and on our diversity committee. And then personally, I was appointed as co-lead counsel in a multi-district litigation that I was working on. And I think I was probably one of the youngest co-lead counsels ever appointed, and maybe the youngest woman ever appointed.
Holly, on behalf of all your friends and colleagues at Robbins Kaplan, congratulations on winning Minnesota Lawyers 2020 Award for Diversity and Inclusion. We are so proud of all you do to make our firm a better place. I couldn't think of a more deserving candidate. Congratulations. Stay safe, everyone, and hopefully next year we can celebrate together.
Keith Ellison. We mentioned the Attorney General's office a little while ago. Now we'd like to talk about the man at the top. Over the years, Keith Ellison has increased diverse hiring, welcomed affinity bar associations, and served on a federal bar panel on cultural competency in the legal profession. Minority hiring has risen 15% since Keith took office. What's more, 30% of AG attorneys and staff are minorities. Recently, Keith held a day-long continuing legal education program on bias and hate crimes that drew an online audience of nearly 1,000. Minnesota Lawyer is pleased to recognize Keith Ellison for his contributions to diversity and inclusion.
The last 5 months has been an amazing whirlwind. 2020 has been a year that I don't think anybody is likely to forget anytime soon. The Trump presidency, COVID-19, the death and killing of George Floyd, the civil disturbances, over 200,000 Americans dead from a disease that could have been minimized, slowed down. It's just been the most trying time. These are the times that try men's souls, as some wise person once said. But in this difficulty and all these challenges, I have found renewed hope. I've seen that we can emerge, we can come together, we can reach out in solidarity, we can provide aid and comfort and backup to our fellow Minnesotans and people all over this country, no matter what their color, their culture, their religion, their sex, their sexual orientation, who they may be. They're human beings, they're our people, and we can stand next to them despite whatever may come. So these last 5 months have been crazy, but they've also been times that I think that I will always remember and I will never regret. And I will always look back on as a moment that proved that we can come together no matter what the difficulties we face may be.
Athena Hollings. It wasn't long ago that Athena Hollings faced skepticism when she tried to tell the legal community about systemic racism and its implications. But not this year. The upheaval of 2020 has created a thirst for conversations about race. Athena is a Senior Director of Diversity and Foundations for the Minnesota Bar Association. In that role, she designs CLEs that touch on topics like systemic racism and implicit bias, as well as the nuances of drafting legislation and lobbying elected officials. She's also running to be a state representative, seeing it as a way to fight for systemic equity at a legislative level. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to honor Athena Hollings for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
The past 5 months have been difficult for everybody, I think, in the practice of law, especially in membership associations. But we have been surprised and delighted to have more people involved in what we're doing than probably ever before. There's been a resurgence of interest in racial equity and what the legal profession can do around that since the George Floyd killing. And we've seen a greater interest in it from leadership of the bar associations as well as members. So it's actually a really exciting time to be working in diversity and inclusion in membership associations. So I would say my legal role model was Phylicia Rashad on The Cosby Show, because she was the only Black female lawyer that I had ever seen. And the way she commanded the room and like ran that household was really inspiring to me. And I remember being a kid thinking, I want to be just like Phylicia Rashad on The Cosby Show. Is running a successful primary race for the legislative district in which I live. And at this point, I'm expected to join the legislature in November and be elected. And so that would be my greatest achievement. And I ran on a premise of organization and equity and the importance of it, and making sure that voices that aren't typically heard at the Capitol would be heard. And I'm really proud of the work that we did in order to make that possible, and the coalition that we built to make that feasible. So I guess that's my greatest accomplishment.
To Sedra Jones. To Sedra Jones is addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion from the ground up. 3 years ago, she started Strong and Starlight Consulting, drawing on her experience working in the legal profession as well as in business compliance and inclusion. The idea is to encourage organizations to continue asking the tough questions and making the kind of changes they need to have truly effective policies around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Strong and Starlight also works with local organizations to develop a recovery and relief program that can aid communities and business owners of color. Minnesota Lawyer is pleased to honor to Sedra Jones for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
The last 5 months have affected me and my work within the legal field. I would say more so in the type of programming that we're doing. I've worked with organizations like the International Leadership Institute, founded by retired Judge LeJune Lang, to put on a series of CLEs that are responding to what is happening in the world around us today. So providing attorneys opportunities to learn more about issues that are pressing right now, more so than we have in the past. In terms of my role models growing up, I would have to say I have a lot of elders in my family that I respected greatly, as well as some of the first attorneys in my family. So both my grandmothers, great-grandparents. It's just a really long list. I spend a lot of time with people over 80, and I speak in parables thanks to them. A lot of wisdom to learn from. One of my greatest accomplishments in my career, I would have to say graduating from law school. One of my role models was my grandmother, who helped to raise me, and that was something she told me since I was 3 years old, was that I was going to be a lawyer one day. And to make it that far and to accomplish that and do the things that I've been able to do, I really credit her for that drive, and I'm grateful that I made it this far.
Alexander Kim. Diversity and inclusion calls on people to advocate for their own group and people who can be an ally to others. Alexander Kim does both. After a dozen years as an associate at another firm, Alexander joined Greenberg Traurig as a shareholder. There he handles patents, copyrights, and other intellectual property matters. He's also encouraging more people of Asian background to look into the law business. Alexander is a past president of the Minnesota Asian Pacific American Bar Association and a co-chair of the national affiliate's first annual conference. He's also the president of the International Association of Korean Lawyers, the first lawyer from Minnesota to hold that post. Minnesota Lawyer is pleased to recognize Alexander Kim for his contributions to diversity and inclusion.
In the past 5 months, it's been challenging. All my travel plans have been canceled. Had to cancel a couple of conferences that I was organizing across the country, in Europe as well. I was looking forward to going to Paris for the first time. Had to cancel that. Looking forward to going to New Zealand for the first time. I had to cancel that. It's been a challenge for me professionally in my profession, but also being the president of the organization that I serve. But I think this has been an opportunity to explore new technologies and new methods of getting people together. It's almost a more intimate conversation now, because when you are at a Zoom meeting, you're sort of seeing them when they're more casual, not the suits, not the makeup. Oftentimes, kids and pets join us in our video calls, and we can naturally start talking about some of the personal issues that we face. And I strongly believe that challenges actually bring people closer together. Growing up, my role model was my father. He was a God figure as a kid. He almost never spent any time with me. He was always busy working. But as a teenager, I recognized how hard he works and how smart and creative he was. He passed away in 2015, and that loss has changed my view on life quite a bit as well. So I would say my father has always been my role model.
Congratulations, Alex. Your recognition by the Minnesota Lawyer as a 2020 Diversity and Inclusion honoree is so well deserved. Whether it's your work locally, nationally, or in the international realm, what you do makes a tremendous difference. On behalf of Greenberg Trarg, our fellow shareholders, associates, and business staff, thank you for all that you do. The work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is better because of you. Congratulations, Alex.
Adean Momo. As the daughter of West African immigrants, Adean Momo says she has lived and breathed diversity and inclusion her entire life. She's putting that strong background to work at Stinson, where she's an equity partner. As part of the firm's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Adean has served as a voice for associate attorneys of color and young women on issues including recruitment, evaluation, parental leave, advancement, and retention. She also recently completed her term as the 100th president of the Hennepin County Bar Association, making history as its first Black woman and youngest attorney ever to serve as president. Minnesota Lawyer is pleased to honor Adean Momo for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
Without question, my parents have been my role models since day one. I grew up in a household where community service and public service have been core values, along with education, having a strong work ethic, and giving back. My mother is a retired therapist and licensed clinical social worker. My father is a retired chemical engineer, and he has volunteered at our church, serving as a lead usher for over 30 years. My parents have taught me to lead with empathy, to treat others with dignity, and to act with integrity.
Sarah Oquist. As the first enrolled member of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe Indians to obtain a law degree, Sarah Oquist has found herself to be an engaging, powerful speaker on the topics of race and diversity. On behalf of her own consulting firm, she has regular speaking engagements. Sarah also works with executives, management teams, and tribal entities to enhance leadership capacity and improve accountability. Not wanting to be pigeonholed as an expert on diversity, Sarah has begun putting more sessions together and addressing issues like microaggressions and discrimination. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize Sarah Oquist for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
The events of the last 5 months have shaped my work by helping me understand how incredibly important my work is. Being able to speak to a wide audience and help people increase their awareness, change how they show up, create an inclusive workplace. I think right now it's the most important thing I can do. My role model growing up was my mom. She was a hard worker. She didn't graduate from high school, but she worked hard. She didn't care what it was she was doing. She did her best. She was super hospitable. She was kind and loving, but she always told me, don't quit, don't quit, don't quit, and be kind.
Marcos Ramirez. Marcos Ramirez came here from Venezuela armed with smarts and ambition. He earned both a Master in Law and a JD at Mitchell Hamlin, and before long started his own firm. Nexum Legal helps individual clients with visas, green cards, and other immigration matters, and small business clients with civil litigation. And by unbundling services and charging flat or sliding scale fees, Marcos makes his services more accessible to people who need help. He has also worked to allow foreign-trained lawyers with a Master in Law, or LLM, to sit for their Minnesota bar exam, something he wasn't able to do without an advanced degree. Minnesota Lawyer is proud to recognize Marcos Ramirez for his contributions to diversity and inclusion.
In my career, one of the biggest accomplishments, I would say, to represent underrepresented communities. I think having the pleasure of seeing someone who cannot communicate in English going through the legal system has been one of my biggest accomplishments. One of my role models, I would say my dad, and of course Jesus Christ. Following their steps, I don't think, if I can even try, I guess I will have an okay life right now.
Lika Tamazuka. Faegre Drinker has long been active in promoting diversity in the legal profession, and Lika Tamazuka has been a beneficiary of that. Now she wants to use it to help others. She arrived as an intern and is now a partner in the firm's real estate group. Since then, Lika has served on the nominating and hiring committees, co-chairs the Diverse Lawyers Resource Group, and has served on the firm's Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the past 5 years. Lika also serves on the boards of many local organizations that provide opportunities for diverse members of the community. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize Lika Tamazuka for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
I have a lot of role models in my career, but there are quite a few at my firm who have really supported me and helped me become who I am at the firm and who I try to emulate as I grow into my practice and becoming a leader. There's so many, especially in the community also, who are friends, who are colleagues. But just to name a few, the leaders of my firm, past and present, my sponsor and trainer at my work dad for many years, Charlie Farrell, but especially my colleagues. They don't have to be senior to me to be role models to me. All of my role models include all the younger attorneys I work with as well. The last 5 months have been really tough. I think it's been tough for a lot of people for many different reasons. The pandemic, but then the racial injustice coming to a head, and all of us in the D&I work that we do, it was especially painful because we worked so hard to try to make a difference, and it was a big realization that despite all of our work, the community is really still hurting so much. But it actually really reinvigorated me too, and made me recommit to my work, and I'm really excited about the progress that we can make.
My name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm an associate at Faegre Drinker in Chicago, and I co-lead the Diversity Collective with Lika Tamazuka. Doris Kearns Goodwin posits that although there isn't necessarily a common pattern that predicts where leadership will go, great leaders do share some common characteristics, including resilience. And in times of great challenge, great leaders lean on talents which build opportunities for others. Lika Tamazuka is a great leader precisely because she inspires and empowers others, us, every day to lead from where we are. Lika, you have been steadfast in your leadership of the Faegre Drinker Diversity Collective, our resource group for diverse lawyers. I've seen your leadership, I've felt it, and I'm a product of it. So on behalf of the collective, congratulations to a wonderful partner and really good friend, mentor, and sponsor. on being a 2020 honoree for Minnesota Lawyers Diversity and Inclusion Recognition.
Faegre Drinker congratulates our partner and Diversity Collective co-leader, Lika Tamazuka, on being named a 2020 Diversity and Inclusion honoree. Lika's work to shape Faegre Drinker's diversity and inclusion efforts, from collaboration to advocacy to community outreach and engagement, has left a lasting impression on her colleagues. Congratulations on this well-deserved recognition, Lika. And thank you for all you do to advance Faegre Drinker's mission to be a diverse and inclusive workplace for all.
Lika Tamazuka is one of the kindest, most generous, and most thoughtful people I have ever met. Lika currently serves on the board of directors for and volunteers for a number of organizations that serve people in our community, particularly people of color. Lika is an inspiration to those around her, and she makes us all better. I can think of no one more deserving of this award than Lika. Congrats, Lika.
Judge Rachael Wahi. Rachael Wahi has been a highly regarded judge in Minnesota's 1st Judicial District for 4 years. But what people who appear in her court might not know is that she's hearing disabled. That means she has an affinity for all efforts toward diversity. Rachael is a longtime member of the Minnesota Judicial Branch's Committee for Equality and Justice. She also has chaired the Access and Fairness Subcommittee. In those roles, she has written reports on the progress that Minnesota has made concerning diversity and equality. One such report summarized the work that has been done from the original Race Bias Task Force and what they're still yet to do. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize Rachael Wahi for her contributions to diversity and inclusion.
I think George Floyd's daughter said it best when she said that her dad changed the world. For those of us that have been working in the legal community and on diversity-related issues, we're seeing an unprecedented level of awareness. And so with that, at the judicial branch, we have been working at the statewide level to study juries and the racial composition and backdrop as compared to census data. In addition, we've been working on probation revocation rates and disproportionate impacts statewide on Native American populations. And then in the 1st Judicial District, we are currently working on looking at charging and on disposition rates to determine what the breakdowns look like from a racial composition. I've had the privilege to serve my community now for 5 years as a judge, and I've been able to work on a number of different cases, both in my private practice and on the bench. I would have to say that probably one of the most meaningful impacts on my career was following a mass calendar and we had some folks that were in the audience, and after the hearings got over, one of the deputies brought over a member of the public that was there to observe for the day, and she just asked if she could bring her daughter in the next day. So it's been a privilege as a female, as a minority judge that just happens to also have a hearing disability to serve my community.
Before we honor our next group, we have a short message from the Legal Leadership Network.
The Legal Leadership Network was created as an organization dedicated towards new attorneys in practice to become leaders. This organization is dedicated towards providing young and new attorneys with the skills and the opportunities they need to succeed in practice.
The Legal Leadership Network is an organization of young professionals in the legal community, both attorneys and non-attorneys, working together to develop the intangible skills necessary to succeed in practice. Those skills include effective leadership qualities, personal branding, business development, and networking.
What I appreciated most about the Legal Leadership Network is that it helped me define the kind of attorney I wanted to become, and then helped me to leverage and market that image to potential clients.
The Legal Leadership Network challenges us to get involved. This pushes us to apply the curriculum we advocate.
I joined the Legal Leadership Network because I wanted to help support their vision in establishing a platform that creates new and meaningful relationships. Being a member gives me the opportunity to create those same meaningful relationships that brought me here in the first place. It's the first organization I've worked with that helps members navigate the challenges all legal professionals face outside of the office and the courtroom.
The focus on building your own professional brand and being able to market your services is something that's really beneficial for all professional segments. It's something that isn't taught in the workplace. It's typically learned with experience over time, and being younger and not having the benefit of time and experience, LLN really helps streamline our progress towards those goals.
What sets the Legal Leadership Network apart from other professional organizations is not just its commitment to leadership or its emphasis on professional development. It's also its large community of new attorneys that aspire to become leaders in the legal profession.
The Legal Leadership Network, or LLN, isn't just an organization that keeps its members updated on the law. It's an organization that focuses on improving its members' business, marketing, and legal skills with the overall goal of providing that member the foundation to be the legal community's next leaders.
You know, what's most exciting to me about the future of LLN is watching how it can help new attorneys and other legal professionals lead and thrive in our new normal.
The Legal Leadership Network is continuing to grow thanks to the efforts of its young professionals. We continue to work towards building a better practice while building our own careers, and we hope you'll join us in working towards these goals.
The great thing about the Legal Leadership Network is that there are ample ways for attorneys to get involved in this organization. We've got multiple committees, leadership spots, opportunities and events coming up in 2020 that we need help. And so we hope that you'll help us and grow this organization and get involved.
Next, we honor organizations.
Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers. Last June, more than 200 members of the Minnesota legal community showed up in solidarity with the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers for a silent protest at the Hennepin County Government Center to highlight police brutality and remember George Floyd. Started 25 years ago to promote the interests of black attorneys, Mabel members have served on the Minnesota Supreme Court, the U.S. Court of Appeals, and county courts. The organization stays active on a number of social fronts, including immigration and criminal justice reform. The group also recently held a judicial boot camp for attorneys seeking to apply for judicial vacancies in Minnesota state district courts and sessions on how members can support protesters and promote voter rights. Minnesota Lawyer is proud to recognize the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers for its contributions to diversity and inclusion.
We are the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers, and so our mission has always been to promote black attorneys, law students, and judges. And part of our mission has always been to push equity and justice for black Minnesotans. And so while it's always been part of our mission and the framework of our organization, after the murder of George Floyd, I think we knew that as leaders within the legal bar in Minnesota that it was important that we take 2 steps forward and that we really make sure that we're really pushing the mantle forward with regards to equity and justice for black Minnesotans and black people in general.
We've been living in a silo for too long, whether it's the legal community or
different affinity communities, people of color, and that sort of thing. So our goal is to make sure that not only, like Amron said, we take 2 steps forward to make sure that we're addressing these racial equity and social justice issues, but we're bringing in our collaborators and allies to help with this as well, because it's not something we can do on our own. We need everyone to step forward and do the right thing. So our goal this year and the following years is to work with our allies and various groups and organizations to sponsor activities. So dealing with protesters right now, we've worked with other groups to do Know Your Rights training and to help in that sort of capacity. We're also trying to work with legislation to help address criminal justice issues. We've published a series of statements directly dealing with how the attorneys for the officers in the George Floyd murder have been addressing certain issues dealing with Mr. Floyd's past history, sort of criminalizing the victim. So we've tried to work really hard to bring attention to those issues, and we're going to keep working as this year continues to work on bringing attention to the criminal justice issues, social justice issues, and other issues that affect the Black and BIPOC legal community, because we want to make sure that the diversity pipeline is active and that people are actually hiring, retaining, and helping our BIPOC legal community, because if we don't have diverse attorneys, lawyers, judges, we're not going to have a system that reflects that change, and people are going to be active for that as well.
Minnesota Vikings Law Department. For the Minnesota Vikings, so far it hasn't been a great year on the field, but off the field, the team's legal department is doing well and doing good. Led by Karen Nelson, the 3-year-old Social Impact Department contains one of the NFL's first diversity and inclusion councils, whose goal is making the team's processes and policies more inclusive. One of the Vikings' major initiatives to promote diversity has been a summer legal intern program to focus on people who may otherwise not find themselves in an applicant pool for summer internships, especially in the Twin Cities area. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize the Minnesota Vikings Law Department for its contributions to diversity and inclusion. Minnesota Women Lawyers. For almost half a century now, Minnesota Women Lawyers has worked to advance women's success in the state's legal profession. The organization set out on a new frontier recently when it launched the Gender Data Project. With help from the U.S. Census data, MWL released the first ever baseline count of women in Minnesota's legal profession. The 2018 annual report of the Minnesota Judicial Branch shows how fine-grained data in this area has become. It contained a cross-comparison of race and gender data, showing how many women of color are practicing in Minnesota. That data lets MWL do more about such things as disability, gender, and sexual identity. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to honor Minnesota Women Lawyers for its contributions to diversity and inclusion.
Hello, I am Deborah Pexa, Executive Director of Minnesota Women Lawyers. MWL is honored to be among the esteemed recipients of the 2020 Minnesota Lawyer Diversity and Inclusion Award. Furthermore, MWL is so honored to be part of this committed and engaged legal community that is actively working to advance equity, diversity, and inclusion in a myriad of different ways across the profession. Through our collective efforts, whether in the form of large, wide-ranging initiatives or in the smallest moments, as we actively choose to speak up against injustice every time we see it, we are making an impact, step by step, moment by moment. As we witness the tremendous work happening across the legal community, MWL is grateful to be among so many leaders and organizations who are dedicated to this critical work. Thank you for the opportunity to walk alongside all of you as a partner and an ally. Of course, there's always more work to be done, and to that end, MWL remains committed and full of hope. Congratulations to all of this year's Minnesota Lawyer Diversity and Inclusion Award recipients. We look forward to what's next.
And our last honoree is the team of Jerry Blackwell and Corey Gordon of Blackwell Burke.
Jerry Blackwell and Corey L. Gordon. We mentioned Max Mason a moment ago. For Jerry Blackwell and Corey Gordon, Mason's name is a significant one. Working with the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial, Jerry and Corey let a group of attorneys from Blackwell Burke secure a posthumous pardon for Max Mason, who was wrongfully convicted of raping a white woman 100 years ago. The posthumous pardon was the first ever in Minnesota history, and the work was all done pro bono. As Corey put it, diversity is not just about checking a box, it's about acting. Minnesota Lawyer is happy to recognize Jerry Blackwell and Corey Gordon for their contributions to diversity and inclusion.
I guess, being, I hope, a good husband, a good father, and a good grandfather. Probably the grandfather part's the best. But professionally, it's going to sound a little hokey, but I've been practicing law for 40 years. And I can say with any hesitation at all that the single most meaningful moment in my career was when the Minnesota Board of Pardons voted sequentially, with the Attorney General, then the Governor, and the Chief Justice, in favor of the posthumous pardon of Max Mason, which my partner Jerry Blackwell and I had been the petitioners for, drafted and pursued the petition. When we got into it, we didn't really know anything about pardons. We're civil practitioners, and I guess naively I didn't realize that Minnesota hadn't done any posthumous pardons, but we just knew it was the right thing to do with the 100th anniversary of the unconscionable lynchings in Duluth of 3 innocent men, and then the conviction of Max Mason for a crime that never happened, and if it did, he certainly wasn't a participant in it. And that stain has been on our state for 100 years, and I mean it sincerely. I was sitting in a conference room with Jerry Blackwell, and he argued the matter to the Pardon Board, and then the members of the Pardon Board discussed it. This is, of course, the world we live in. It was on Zoom, and sequentially, Attorney General Ellison, Governor Walz, Chief Justice Gildea each voted in favor of it. And honestly, I was holding my breath until I was over, and when it was over, it gave me the greatest sense of professional satisfaction I've had.
Good evening, Minnesota Lawyer. I'm Brendan Kenny, and on behalf of Blackwell Burke, we'd like to just express our gratitude and thankfulness of the well-deserved honor given to our founder and CEO, Jerry Blackwell, and partner, Corey Gordon. If there's any lawyers that embody putting into practice diversity and inclusiveness in their lives and in their work, it's them. And we're so grateful to be part of a firm that they're leading. And many in the public and even in the legal profession, we see the big ticket items, the high profile matters that they've been involved with, whether it's the Max Mason pardon matter or some of the other things going on now and in the future in the Twin Cities. But this honor is so appropriate because of how Blackwell Burke and how Jerry Blackwell and Corey Gordon are putting into practice diversity and inclusiveness in the day-to-day function of the firm and them and the rest of us as lawyers and staff. Diversity and inclusiveness is not a one-time thing. It's not one event. It's not a bunch of buzzwords. It's not a line item. It's not something you send out once a year to clients about all the great stuff you're doing. It's embodied shared values, shared cultural experiences, but also the full breadth of cultural competence and backgrounds in one place. And if there's any place that embodies that, it's Blackwell Burke. And the reason is that it was designed that way. Diversity and inclusiveness isn't an oversight. It's part of who we are as a firm. So again, thank you. And we're so grateful to be a part of Blackwell Burke and a part of what Jerry Blackwell and Corey Gordon have been doing. And we just hope this is an opportunity, a moment for all of us in the legal profession, from top to bottom, to think about how diversity and inclusiveness can be something that we're incorporating into our firms, into our daily work and our daily lives. So thank you again. Have a great night.
This has been an incredible evening of recognition. I hope you've enjoyed spending time with and hearing the stories of these diversity and inclusion community advocates and leaders. I would normally ask the honorees to stand, so if you would like to, that would be awesome. But I will ask all of you out there to please join me in acknowledging again their achievements, hard work, and dedication. You will find profiles of each of our honorees in a special magazine inside today's edition of Minnesota Lawyer. There's a lot of great work being done, but we also realize a lot more must be accomplished to move the needle in a significant way. On behalf of Minnesota Lawyer, thank you for celebrating with us today our 4th annual Diversity and Inclusion Awards. If you would like extra copies of the Diversity and Inclusion magazine, please let us know. Honorees, if you would like to order a framed reprint for your magazine profile, look for an email from Lisa Arnold or email me. At this time, we usually open the stage for photos, so rather than rush the virtual stage, snap photos of your own and post them online using the hashtag MNDiversity2020. Good night. Thank you for attending. Stay safe and healthy, and hopefully we'll celebrate in person in 2021.
To recognizing some amazing
Minnesota Lawyer.
prompter went dark.
Prompter went dark.
Order. Okay, I'm sorry, can I redo that? Quiet in the gallery.
They've had a better chance.
Short drive.
right, short drive.
Too bad it's going to be in Green Bay, though.
They made their selections in August, so you'll notice several honorees being recognized for very recent actions. Close. That was close. Almost all the way there.
This. You're fine. Elbows? Yeah. All right. COVID elbows. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, I got a little nervous there. Are you gonna shoot that? Is that gonna be in there? Oh my goodness, I got a little nervous there.
Too tricky to do it this way. So
I almost need a little water. Oh yeah. Do we have?
Where's the water, man?
Yeah.
Like a robot.
To stop, I lost that one a little bit.
Oh, okay. That's like the hardest one.
How you feel?
Did it.
Take 34. Take.
Do I go? Oh. Whoa, and I still don't know what I'm gonna say. All right, you're gonna edit it. Clip it up. Oh, okay. Hopefully these are not going to be in the outtakes. Okay.
Hopefully we'll celebrate in person in 2021.